My father never told me he was proud of me. Not once, and I used to think that was his failure, not mine. The summer I turned 13, I watched him come home every night with the same gray expression. He'd loosen his tie, pour a glass of water, and sit in the dark living room for exactly 17 minutes before speaking to anyone. I thought he was angry. I thought we'd disappointed him. It took me 15 years to understand he was just tired, and that tiredness was a language he'd never learned to translate. We call it middle-class pressure, but that phrase sounds too clean, too administrative. What it actually feels like is the weight of never being able to fall behind, but never being allowed to complain about keeping up. When you grow up in a house where the mortgage is manageable, and the fridge is full and you never miss a meal, you don't qualify for sympathy. No one hands you a scholarship for having a dad who works 60 hours a week and communicates exclusively through grunts and the sports section. You don't get a trauma award for the year your mom stopped buying herself new clothes so you could play travel soccer. And because you're not suffering in any measurable way, you learn to bury the small griefs. You tell yourself it wasn't that bad. You tell yourself you're being dramatic. You tell yourself so many lies that by the time you're 25, you can't even locate the truth anymore. But here's what nobody tells the middle-class boy. Your parents' sacrifice isn't just financial. It's emotional. They gave you stability and took the processing fee out of their own nervous systems. Your mother didn't just skip the handbag. She skipped the therapy she needed to deal with her own mother. Your father didn't just work late. He worked through the part of himself that wanted to be an artist, or a musician, or anything other than a man who measures his worth in quarterly bonuses. And then you inherit it. Not the money. Most of us don't inherit significant money. You inherit the relationship style. You inherit the belief that love is something you provide, not something you feel. You inherit the conviction that your value is tied to your output, and that resting is equivalent to failing. I remember the exact moment I became my father. I was 24, working a corporate job I'd been told to want. I'd just gotten a promotion that added 15 hours to my week and subtracted the last hobby I still had. I came home at 10:47 p.m., didn't turn on the lights, sat on the edge of the couch, and stared at the blank television for 20 minutes. My girlfriend asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I wasn't fine. I just didn't have the vocabulary for what I was feeling, because nobody had ever modeled that vocabulary for me. That's the real inheritance. Not the coin collection. Not the coin collection. Not the china nobody uses. The silence. The endurance. The belief that acknowledging weight makes it heavier. And here's the part that still makes my chest tight. They did it because they loved us. My parents genuinely believed that if they absorbed every burden without complaint, we would grow up lighter. They thought protection was the same as preparation. They thought if we never saw them break, we would never learn how to break. But what we actually learned is that breaking is shameful. That struggle is private. That if you're struggling, you're doing it wrong. What we inherit isn't wealth, it's the silence around want. This is why so many of us reach our late 20s and feel like frauds. We have the job, the apartment, the 401k contributions. By every external metric, we've succeeded. But we still feel one mistake away from collapse, because we never learned how to fall. We were never taught that failure is a normal part of being human. We were only taught to avoid it at all costs. I spent 3 years in therapy before I could say the sentence, "I am afraid that if I stop achieving, my father will stop being proud of me." It took another year to realize he was never not proud. He just didn't know how to show it. His father didn't show him. His grandfather didn't show him. 4 generations of men passing down the same locked box, each one convinced they'd protect the next by keeping the combination secret. Breaking that cycle requires something that feels almost violent at first: visibility. You have to let people see you struggle. You have to admit, out loud, that you don't have it all figured out. You have to say, "I'm tired," without adding, "but it's fine." You have to become the ancestor your grandchildren will reference when they say, "We talk about things in this family." It is uncomfortable. It will make you want to crawl out of your skin. The voice in your head that sounds like your father will tell you you're being weak, you're complaining, you're not grateful enough. That voice is not the truth. That voice is just the echo of a man who was never given his own vocabulary. The middle-class boy doesn't need to become rich. He doesn't need to outperform his parents to validate their sacrifice. He doesn't need to turn their quiet endurance into a monument. What he needs, what I needed, is permission to be a work in progress. Permission to want things that aren't on the approved list. Permission to say, this is hard, and here, I believe you, instead of, it could be worse. You are not ungrateful for wanting more than survival. Here is what I want you to take from this. Your parents gave you what they had. It wasn't everything. It wasn't always what you needed, but it was what they had. And now the responsibility shifts to you. Not to repay them, you can never repay them, but to complete the translation they started. To take their wordless love and turn it into something speakable. To be the one who finally learns the language, then teaches it to the next generation. If you're watching this and something in your chest tightened, that's not weakness. That's the lock starting to turn. If this resonated, take a second to like the video. It tells the algorithm that more people need to hear this. And if you're new here, welcome to 1% at a time.